Whole sports all plays. Yeah. Whole sports all plays. Whole sports all plays. 365, we're making up plays. You talking the game, get you to the days. We're high in the court, the dime in the lane. Variety topics, living the same. All presentation, sports information. Hitting the airways, taking the nation. All sport, all plays, like working your faces. Grace at the field, so tie the laces. Whole sports all plays.
All right. Welcome to another episode of The Real Talk. We leave our opinions at the doorstep and we keep it 100% real in our conversations. As you can see, we got Tony running production tonight, and then we got Ray from the Bonds Chronicles. And let's say what's up to the people, Mr. Ray.
What's going on, everybody? Another enjoyable night. I'm sacrificing watching my team play on the bigger screen so I can be here with y'all. So I'm excited. We're going to get it in.
Hey, there's Mr. Tony coming back with us, a fellow Cowboys fan. Say what's up to the people, Mr. Tony.
How's it going, y'all, man? This weekend with college, all the big new shakeups, man. And Mike McCarthy is out with COVID. I know that's going to be terrible to say as a person, but as a Cowboys fan, I am ecstatic that Mike McCarthy is not coaching this weekend. I am so happy.
Let old Dan Quinn take the reins and see what he can do with this team.
No, let me have Kellen Moore. I don't need Dan. Dan got fired. I don't need Dan.
Hey, that's all right. Hey, listen, Dan's doing great for our defense, so I'm not mad at it. But yeah, I kind of agree with you. Let Kellen Moore step up in there. I got you. I feel you. Mr. Kenny Moore, say what's up to the people.
What's up, everybody? Always great to be on. And, had a good Thanksgiving holiday until the Cowboys tried to ruin it. But, other than that, the food was great. But the Cowboys, not so much. But we here. We still here. Still.
I'm not going to lie to you, man. I feel you. I ate that turkey. And about halfway through at halftime of the Cowboys game, the turkey wasn't feeling too good anymore. So I had to switch it up and start throwing back some Hennessy to forget all my troubles. But that's a conversation between me and my 12-step program. So we'll come back to that some other day. All right, hey, let's jump into this, man. Speaking of college, let's jump into this, man. I got Lincoln Riley obviously choked up, talking about how much he appreciated his time at Oklahoma at his press conference. Let's talk about the Lincoln Riley effect. Oklahoma getting ready to transfer up into the big dogs, up into the SEC. And here's the deal. Everybody's jumping ship now. Lincoln Riley left, Rattler's leaving. All their recruits are talking about jumping ship and going someplace else. Lincoln Riley, as much as he appreciated it when he left, pretty much all the hopes of Oklahoma left with him. They're getting ready to go into the biggest conference that there is in SEC. What's the long term? For me personally, I think Oklahoma's about to go through what Texas is going through right now, which is a long purgatory of just subparness until they can right the ship. Because they still know who's going to. Well, have they decided? I don't think they don't even know who's going to take the helm there. So, what do you think, Tony? And then we'll go around the horn. What do you think about the Lincoln Riley effect on what Oklahoma's going to be facing going into the future?
I kind of agree. I think Oklahoma's in for a rough, but I think it's good for Lincoln Riley. And I say this because I compare it to what happened with Urban Meyer in Ohio State and Ryan Day. Urban Meyer built Ohio State, and then Ryan Day basically took over. And all these people up until this Michigan game, those have all been Urban Meyer's guys. Those are all guys that he brought in. Now Ryan Day's guys are starting to move in, and we're kind of starting to see the difference in the styles. Same with Lincoln Riley and Bob Stoops. Bob Stoops, 1999 to 2016, that man was the head coach of Oklahoma. Lincoln Riley steps in. Now think about it. This is the first year where it's all Lincoln's guys, and they've underperformed. Spencer Rattler, he super, super high on him. He benched him, but he never really came out and supported Williams as far as his backup quarterback goes. Now he's out. The number one quarterback for the nation, Malachi? I don't remember his last name, but Malachi decommitted from him. One of the top wide receivers in the nation decommitted from him. So to me, Oklahoma's in for a rough time, but I'm excited for USC. I'm excited for Lincoln Riley because to me, he's going to really have the opportunity like Urban did. You have a chance to go to a program that has been relevant and was prominent for so many years, is now on the total downslide. If you can rebuild that program to what it used to be, then you can solidify yourself as one of the best college coaches, at least in today's game, and probably even in college football history, to take another program and rebuild it back to prominence.
Yeah, I agree with you, Mr. Ray. What's your thoughts on that?
No, I agree. It's a win for Lincoln Riley, but if you're Oklahoma, like I watched Undisputed this morning, and Skip Bayless was pissed off. And I think you bring in Lincoln Riley to your program, and he took them to another level. They were in the college football playoff. They were competitive. They pivoted over to the SEC, and as soon as they get ready to go over there, your premier coach leaves, and he doesn't just leave, but he's taking coordinators. He's taking commits with them. Spencer Rattler said he's transferring as well. Like, he's just leaving them in shambles, and now they're spinning their wheels trying to figure out who they're going to replace him with. If you're USC, it's a great find, but we'll see how that translates to winning championships. Now, he might get them to the college football playoff because the Pac-12 has been kind of down, but he's never had great defenses, and he hasn't performed super well when they've made it, even as far as they've made it. So I think it's exciting if you're a USC fan. It really sucks if you're Oklahoma, and I think Oklahoma's might be starting to be mentioned with the Vanderbilts and others in the SEC because they're starting to get those 3-star recruits, and they're not getting those 5 stars unless they go get a big-time coach. That's a tough division to be at the bottom of.
And SEC, not SEC, Oklahoma, the actual athletic leadership there, the athletic directors and so forth, they said they're excited. Like they said, Lincoln Riley, they wish him well, but they're excited about the next phase. I don't know what the hell you're excited about. Going into mediocrity, playing the toughest level of competition, and like I said, all your talent is leaving you. What the hell is there to be excited about? Your stands are going to be depleted because nobody wants to come watch you. It's going to be horrible. I don't know what they're excited about. I don't get that. Mr. Kenny, what's your thoughts?
Well, I think the reason why they said that because I saw a report where they're going to be hiring Brent Venable, the DC from Clemson. Mm-hmm. And I guess some years ago, he was at Oklahoma as well, so he has some history there. So maybe they're thinking that he'll be able to kind of keep the ball rolling. Maybe that's what they're thinking about in terms of their excitement. Who knows? But to me, this is one of those deals where Lincoln Riley, he saw the handwriting on the wall. I think he saw how hard it was going to be transitioning to the SEC. He had a much easier path to the college football playoff, being in Oklahoma and being in the Big 12. And I think he saw that same path in SC, and also an opportunity, like to Tony's point, to be able to resurrect that program. You're out in LA, you're in prime time, so to speak, out there on the West Coast, out there in La La. So I just thought he saw the writing on the wall, and he saw opportunity to be able to still be competitive, still have opportunity to have a chance to get into the college football playoff, and not have as rough a path as he would have in Oklahoma with them being in the SEC, because we know how tough that conference is, both sides of the fence in terms of, your Alabamas, your Georgias, your Floridas, because, they just hired the Louisiana coach. So they're going to be, you're going to battle with, you got pretty much 3 or 4 teams that you got to battle with. LSU, and we'll talk about them in a second, each year in terms of trying to get that maybe 1, maybe 2 spots in that college football playoff. So I think he just saw an easier path to prominence in USC, and then saw an opportunity to, perhaps be the next Pete Carroll, So I just think he saw, and then when I saw that deal, I totally understood why, because I saw something where this dude, they bought both of his houses like double over the asking price, gave him 24/7 use of a private jet, gave him this huge salary, bought him a house, a multi-million-dollar house in LA. So they just really laid out the red carpet for him and almost gave him an offer that he couldn't refuse. So I totally understand why he did it.
Yeah, here's the thing too, right? I mean, so Orgeron is out there, and everybody likes to talk about Orgeron. Players like to play for him. Things like, I know he had his his little bit of an issue there with the whole sexual whatever the hell that was blowing up, and that's why he had to leave. But should Oklahoma possibly look at bringing him in and put him in as their head coach?
I saw that. Oh, sorry, I actually saw that on. I said that on my last show that I think it kind of works because he is a player's coach. I'll be honest with you. I don't know if you're ever going to be able to replace, Go Tigers. Like, I don't know if you can ever really replace that with like, Boomasuna. Like it doesn't like it just can't work. I'll be honest. And to kind of your credit, Jay, I think Oklahoma is in that denial stage. Like, no, everything's going to be fine. We're going to be great. Like, it's fine. We're excited. We're going to be great.
Yeah.
I was kind of we were talking about that as far as like potential head coaches that could go there to Oklahoma, and I mean them. One of the guys brought up Bob Stoops' brother because he's the coach of Kentucky. He used to coach there at Oklahoma. I think that would put him in a better standing because I mean you think about Kentucky. Kentucky's not really a football school. They're a basketball school. Right. They're not sinking the money into that program. I mean, Kentucky had decent. I mean, they were decent this year, like by far.
Mm-hmm.
But
he's done a good job there. Like he's really made them relevant and made them actually competitive. Because, like you said, that's a basketball school for sure.
And why not bring in the brother of the dude that basically built your school for almost 20 years? You need that name to kind of help still bring those recruits in and even keep Oklahoma in the relevancy conversation as far as
absolutely, especially when you go into the SEC, man, you're going to need that recruiting just to keep up with those guys. Or like you said, you'll be just another Vanderbilt over there. I mean, and I'm a Texas guy, so we're in the same boat. I mean, we got Sarkisian. I don't know if I'm 100% sold on him, but I'm not really sold on him. But at the same time, like I said, we're not recruiting well. We're not doing what we need to do to keep up with the schools like Michigan, Oklahoma, Ohio, Alabama. We just don't have it. And unfortunately, that's why the power rankings always stay exactly the way they are, is because they have great recruiting and people like Nick Saban and things of that nature. I mean, as long as they're there, we're hurting.
Yeah, I honestly, I think, it all depends on who they go with. You could kind of stay in that Stoops coaching tree and kind of keep that continuity going. But I think Venable would be a good transition as well because he brings that cachet. Being at Clemson, they've been, they won a couple of championships. He's been the leader of their defense, leading them to helping lead them to those championships. From what I read, he's going to be bringing some guys with him as well. Supposedly, DJ, I don't want to say his last name and mess it up, but he's supposed to be coming along with him. So it could be one of those things where he can kind of do a quick fix and keep the talent base going. But either way, it's got to be somebody that's going to, to Ray's point, you got to be able to bring those high-level recruits in there. You got to bring those 4- and 5-star guys because at the end of the day, I don't care how great a coach you are. You need talent to win. If you don't have talent, you have zero chance of winning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with you. Hey, moving on just a little bit here. Let's talk about these college rankings that just came out today. So they got Georgia. I'm gonna tell you something real quick before we get into that. But I'm gonna get it. So you got Georgia at number 1. You got Michigan number 2 at 11-1. Cincinnati at 12-0, and then of course you got Alabama 11-1, and then the 5th you got Oklahoma State at 11-1. A couple of things that kind of bother me about these rankings, guys. I'll get y'all's opinions on this too. A couple of things that bother me about it is, number one, what does Cincinnati have to do to earn the respect of being in the number 2 spot? Why the hell Michigan at 11-1? I don't understand. What does Cincinnati got to do? I mean, that's number one thing that baffles me. The number 2 thing that baffles me is Alabama sitting there in 3 or 4 overtimes with a team who is unranked and sitting at number 4 spot when you got, I don't understand. I mean, for me, if I'm a guy and I'm voting for these rankings and I'm voting who I want in, who I don't want in, I don't want a team that's sitting there struggling to get past Auburn, who, by all honesty, if you watch that game, truly almost damn near won that game. It's a freak of freaking nature that Alabama came out, number 1. And so if you're struggling that hard and you've already got one loss to your credit at A&M, which is, a very low-ranked team as well at the time, why are we letting this? I understand it's a Nick Saban effect. I get that. But at the same time, I think that there's other schools out there that are just as deserving to be in that number 4 spot that don't have the Nick Saban as their head football coach. We'll start around the horn. Tony, what do you thought?
Yeah, to me, it's a couple things. So I think Cincinnati doesn't get the respect because Cincinnati doesn't have the schedule. They're not in a Power 5 conference, therefore they don't face Power 5 teams. The one win that they do have is against Notre Dame, and we all know that while yes, Notre Dame is ranked, we've seen Notre Dame basically drop it when it comes to actually going into the playoffs. So to me, that's kind of why Cincinnati gets a knock. Michigan at number 2 kind of makes sense. They had Ohio State at number 2. They beat Ohio State. They beat Ohio State handily. So, I mean, they move them up to the 2 spot. But Jay, I'm with you 100%. To me, the Alabama game, that is inexcusable. And Freddie is going to hate me for this, and I really don't care. And I'm going to say this to all the Alabama fans. I really don't care. That is unacceptable. You almost lost to an Auburn team that has a true freshman quarterback that was limping. His ankle was destroyed. You took it to 4 overtimes. The only reason you won is because Auburn shot themselves in the foot. Auburn said, "Nah, we don't want to win."
Yeah, pretty much.
Like we out of gas. We did the best we could.
Like to me, the only reason they have Alabama even in these playoff rankings is for relevancy and for money. Because think about it, who is going to get you more attraction as far as, oh, hey, who's the national championship game? Bama or Cincinnati? Bama or Oklahoma State? And Bama is that big time money grabber. I kind of said the same thing with LSU, and I know we'll get into that a little bit later. It's one of those. Bama and LSU are your 2 big SEC teams that draws all the attention and all the money, and that's who they want in the playoffs. So to me, if Bama loses this weekend, they are done. They're out, and I know for a fact if everybody else loses, somebody will make an argument. Well, I mean, Bama has 2 losses, but they're like the 4th best team. No, they're not. No, they're not. You struggled against like the worst quarterback situation you ever could, and you took it to 4 overtimes. No.
Right.
No.
And that's why I'm really excited for this Saturday. And I tell you, like I was telling my friend who's a huge Georgia fan. I mean, just matter of fact, he got tickets for his birthday just to go see the actual game between Bama and Georgia. And I told him, I was like, man, this is going to give all the credibility to Georgia winning the national championship. Once you beat Bama and you put that equation out of the picture, then you go win the national title. There's not going to be a person in the world that's going to challenge or say one thing about why you shouldn't be the national champ. I mean, sometimes you always, you know what I'm saying? It's going to solidify that record, that championship for them. Ray, what do you think?
I disagree with you guys. I get that.
Okay.
Alabama didn't have, the sexy win this past week, and it was a tough game. They won. Like, we've watched across all of sports, the NBA this year, the NFL this year, college football. I have been pretty active in DraftKings. Every week we see teams that should win, or not cover. And the fact is they won the game. I think was the Clemson game that went to like 9 overtimes or some ridiculous earlier in the year. So good teams lose to bad teams. Alabama keeps finding a way to win. They did beat Ole Miss. The loss to Texas A&M is not great, but Alabama's wins are better than anything Cincinnati has, and their loss was, their loss. So I disagree completely. I think Cincinnati is fighting that same stigma that every SEC or Big Ten team that ends up in the tournament faces. They don't play well, whether it's Notre Dame, whether it's Oklahoma, whether it's Washington. I think Oregon was in at one point.
Yep.
All of those teams come in and they play against the Bamas, the Georgias, the Ohio States, the Clemsons, and they look like they don't belong. And I will be very curious to see how Cincinnati performs. The quarterback looks good. They've done everything they're supposed to do. They put up, 50 every week. They blow almost everyone out. So I'm not disputing that, but that's why Alabama's there. If you have, I think Michigan State is sitting on the outskirts, Oklahoma State, do we really think that Oklahoma State is a better school than Alabama? Maybe, but you're going to have to prove it by Alabama losing to Georgia. And if they play competitive, or God forbid that they fool around and beat Georgia, which I don't think they will. I think Georgia, despite everything we're talking about, has looked like by far the best team in college football. If they somehow manage to pull that off, it validates everything that they've been saying. And if they lose a close one, then we can slide into Cincinnati, the Michigans. And then at that point, it's really a toss-up who that 4th team will be. I don't think a 2-loss Alabama gets in above Notre Dame, which is going to bring a bunch of people. I don't think Ohio State has a chance. And I think it'll be an Oklahoma State, Notre Dame option. And at that point, it's really a toss-up. But we'll see. I think Alabama deserves to be at the 4th spot for all they represent. And if they lose this week, then it's a non-issue. But if they win, then they validate the reason they were number 4.
Yeah.
And that's why this Saturday is going to be so sweet, because if Georgia slaps the crap out of Saban and Alabama, well, then we can say, get the hell out of the 4th spot. You don't deserve to be there. And we can bring the next man up.
And
that's
not
why
only
it's going to be so sweet. It's going to be sweet because then Bama can't say, well, we still belong there because Nick Saban got 11-2. No, guy, you got beat. Now get the hell out and let's bring in the next guy. But like you said, I'm pumped. You can't tell I'm pumped for this Saturday. I can't wait for that game. Okay, Kenny, as I'll be quiet now, what's your thoughts on this?
No, go ahead, Tony. You was about to say something.
Yeah, and I will say if Georgia wins, it makes things a whole hell of a lot easier for them to win the national, because then they don't have to face Alabama again in the playoffs, and then Alabama turn around and beat them wholeheartedly.
Yeah. I just think that the Cincinnati thing is all about, that Power 5 and them being in the American Athletic Conference. That's all that's about. And the fact that they're, their only big win is against Notre Dame. I think that's why they're not getting the credit that, that they deserve for being 12-0. But in terms of Alabama, like I'm kind of with you guys in terms of I'm over Alabama. Like they've had their run, and now that's, having said that, I love Bryce Young as a quarterback. I think this guy is going to be a great quarterback. And I think he has the chance to be one of the next NFL stars at quarterback because his poise and his arm. He has all of the intangibles. But having said all of that, their defense is terrible. Like, let's not make any bones about it. Like, this is not a Nick Saban defense. This is not, that dominating defense that they've had over the years. And the fact that and to Tony's point, the fact that they had to go to multiple overtimes with a backup quarterback who was playing on one leg, like that pretty much says it all to me. Like that disqualifies you. I'm a Notre Dame fan, and I don't want to see them in the plus because we always go in there and get smacked. So I'm with Ray on that one. So I understand your point about that. But shucks, give Oklahoma State a chance. I don't care. But Alabama, to me, they just haven't played to the standard that they've established for themselves to be on that caliber of being a playoff team. So that's my only thing about it.
But I think that's unfair to Alabama because we are grading against the Alabama standard. We're not.
I understand, and you established that standard. I understand. I get it.
So
I totally get it.
What happens if Michigan go ahead and loses to Iowa next week? Then what?
Oh, that throws everything into chaos.
But here, I don't know. I make a counter though, because if you look at pretty much every other team, the losses that they've had against other ranked opponents. Like that to me is my biggest thing with Alabama. If Alabama had lost to another ranked team, okay, everybody's got one. No big thing. They lost to Atlanta.
If you swap that Texas A&M for Ole Miss, I don't think we're having this conversation.
Yeah, and then they struggled against like to me, all honesty, the biggest thing that I have an issue with Bama is other than Bryce Young, there's been nobody that has stood out on this Bama team on offense, on defense. Normally we're used to 4 first-round wide receivers playing on a Bama team. We're used to first-round talent on the offensive line, defense everywhere, and the fact that we saw, at least in the Auburn game, we saw the initial right tackle that started, he got benched. They brought in another dude, and then he got benched, and then they brought the original dude back out. So to me, and not only that, that was probably one of the most undisciplined Nick Saban teams I've ever witnessed when I saw that game. When I saw that they had over 100 yards in penalties, I was like, I feel bad for those Alabama kids. They are in for a rough week with Nick Saban because he's absolutely not. But that to me is my big thing is, Alabama hasn't played up to the standard that I think everybody is used to Alabama, playing to. If they played Georgia early on in the season, which they wouldn't, and they lost to them and they were ranked, okay, kind of like the Oregon and Ohio State thing, they lost to each other and they were ranked type thing. But they've lost to an unranked team in Texas A&M, which in the SEC it's hard to stay consistently unbeaten. But that to me is where I have a hard time justifying. Yeah, Alabama, if they have 2 losses, deserves to be in there. Now to your credit, if Michigan loses to Iowa, yeah, Michigan's done. Michigan. Oh yeah. To me, Ohio State doesn't need to be in there either, because I know a lot of people are going to be like, okay, we'll put Ohio State in there. No, if you have to have a 2-loss team in, I don't care if it's from the Big Ten, I don't care if it's from the Pac-12, Big 12, wherever. If you have to have a 2-loss team in, you are stretching. You are reaching because then you want games because you want a money thing to attract names. Like you want Bama versus like Ohio State. You don't want like an Oklahoma State that's like, 12-1 versus like Cincinnati that's like 12 or 13-0. You want bigger matchup names because that's going to draw you the money. That's going to draw you the interest.
But if that happens, then like what? Then who do you go with?
You got to skip because if Michigan and Alabama
loses, like who is the 4?
You end up with Cincinnati, Oklahoma State, Notre Dame, and Georgia. That's rough. That is not the 4 that they want.
Yeah, that's not sexy. That's not sexy by no means.
That's rough.
That is going to be brutal when you talk about it.
But you know what? Honestly, it's just the big schools. I mean, they're not playing as dominantly as they have.
This is one of those years, man, where I can see it happening though, because this has been one of those years where what can go wrong will go wrong, to borrow a Cowboys hater term. But yeah, I could definitely see it happening. Who knows, man?
Yeah.
Hey, quick NFL update. So Seattle and Washington are both tied at 9 apiece. 20 seconds left in the second quarter. I guess we kind of, I don't know, man. I really thought Seattle was going to be a little bit more commanding on it, but Washington's hanging right there with them.
Well control offense. I think Heineke's averaging like 5 yards of completion. So 14, 15 completions for like 50 yards or something ridiculous. But long methodical drives, you got to cash. It looks like it was up 3, so we must have missed an extra point. I missed that. But they're hanging in there. Seattle has not looked great. The first drive they looked good, and after that, it's been subpar. So we'll take it.
Oh, yeah, we will. All right, so now that we're kind of transitioning into NFL, let's talk about some hot takes. My hot take is, hey, listen, I'm looking at Jalen Hurts, and I think we talked about this earlier on in the morning show. I have a problem with his judgment calls. There's a lot of things you could teach a quarterback. You could teach him technique. You could teach him how to read defenses and so forth. One thing you cannot give him is judgment. He either has good judgment or he has bad judgment. And, throwing into a lot of different coverages and things, making bad calls. I don't think Jalen Hurts is the guy that's going to take them to the promised land. I think he's going to be a decent quarterback, but I don't think he's going to be that guy. You know what I'm saying? I don't think he's that guy. I think he's just kind of subpar for me. And I think Philadelphia is just kind of hang down in the middle rungs for a little while. Unfortunately, they're in the middle. They're in the NFC East. So fortunately for them, we're not playing that well. So maybe subpar is going to get you to the playoffs. I don't know. But I just don't feel like Jalen Hurts is that guy that's going to get you to the promised land. Tony, what's your hot take?
See, can I say something to that?
Yeah.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Absolutely.
I agree. Jalen Hurts has made some bad decisions, but this is going to be one of my hot takes, but Jalen Reagor is looking like an atrocious draft.
He don't have a whole lot to work with.
Philly,
but he had a lot to work with at Bama when he got benched in the national championship, and then they went on to win it with a completely different guy.
It worked too, so that's not fair.
That went back.
Tua made it work. Tua made it work, didn't he? Did they get the championship? They sure as hell did. So he got benched in college. He got shoveled off to Oklahoma, which he didn't get a championship there either. Then he comes to the Philadelphia Eagles.
Numbers, though. That's my point.
I just think he's got athletic tools, but I don't think he has a judgment call to be the elite guy.
I will agree with you on your judgment because he kept throwing the ball to Reagor and he should have been throwing it to Smith. He got 2 game-winning touchdowns, and I'm just like, dude, like he's awful. Like the others that came after him, they need to look upstairs because that looks like an absolutely horrendous draft pick. But it is what it is at this point.
And then this is his first year as a starter, so I'm gonna.
Hey, it's Mac Jones' first year as a starter too, and look where he's at.
I understand that.
And he don't have no great wide receivers.
And also, he has a running game and he has a really good defense. So all those things. Defense. That's what I'm saying. So that all of those things make a difference. Like this.
But he's not
about football. You need a lot of pieces to the puzzle to make it work.
Mac Jones is making way.
I'm going to give him a little more time because I want to see him with some more talent around him. To Ray's point, I need them to upgrade that wide receiver core. I need them to upgrade a running back because I'm not sure if Miles Sanders is it as well. So I just don't think he has a whole lot to work with. So I want to see him with more talent before I make my final judgment.
Hey, man, ain't nothing wrong with that. Tony, what's your hot take?
Yeah, I'm be honest with you. I'm gonna kind of go on the same thing. I think Jalen is the guy. They just have it built around him. I mean, this is an Eagles organization that has completely gone into a dumpster fire spiral ever since that Super Bowl win. They have just completely lost it. They lost Malcolm Jenkins. I guarantee Fletcher Cox is probably going to leave.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, who do you have on defense? Brandon Graham. I mean, he old, but I mean, you got him. I mean, their secondary has been atrocious for years. And yeah, I mean, they completely screwed up because you think about it, everybody talks about, what was it, 2019, they drafted Dallas Goedert ahead of the Cowboys and, took the tight end that Dallas wanted. So supposedly last year, Dallas was like, all right, we're going to take the wide receiver you want. We're going to get CeeDee Lamb, even though we don't really need him, which benefit for us. But then they decided to draft Jalen Reagor over Justin Jefferson. Why you would ever do that, I don't know. As a Cowboys fan, I'm ecstatic because I love that move that Philadelphia did. But yeah, I mean, Jalen has kept them competitive. I mean, have they faced the greatest of teams? No, but I mean, they're competitive in the division. They've won, what is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They're 2 games behind in the division right now. They're 5 and 7.
The worst division in football. So
Yeah, but this is the NFC East. How has he kept them competitive? Who is he being competitive against? Subpar competition? That's competitive?
I mean,
they're 2 big games back, so that is competitive.
I mean, because again, yeah, he's winning. He's winning the games he's supposed to win. I mean, now think about it. If he had gone out and he had laid like a goose egg against the Detroit Lions, I'd 100% be on board and be like, yeah, Jalen, you done. You're not the guy. But I mean, think about it.
But the argument is not that he can't be somewhat competitive. The argument I'm making to you is he won't get to the promised land. He's not good enough to get to the promised land. That's the argument that I'm making.
I don't think
not the fact that he can't be competitive, but I'm saying he's not going to be that guy to get you there.
No one's getting to the Tom Brady ain't getting to the promised land with that talent.
Yeah, because I mean, think about it.
Tom Brady can do a lot with nothing. He don't need a whole lot. He didn't have a whole lot when he was with New England, but he made them good.
But you got to think too. Out of all those years, New England almost always had a competitive defense. Even if they were ranked like 32nd, the second half of the year, that was a top 10 defense through and through. So I mean, he has Devontae Smith. They have Miles Sanders, garbage. They have Boston Scott, garbage. They have I think they re-signed Jordan Howard. He was good in 2016. Now he's not.
But even with a good defense, if you're giving turnovers, if you're constantly turning the ball over, let me tell you something. That defense is going to get tired.
Yeah. That was really
the defense so long. That defense is going to get tired.
That was the first game we've seen in a while where he did throw multiple turnovers because he was fortunate.
Look at his stats real quick.
Because I mean, other than that, he's been solid this year.
Yeah, I mean,
13 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. That's
and he had
solid.
3 yesterday.
I mean, if
coming
we're
in with 13-5,
criticize him for that, and Mac Jones at 16-8, that's not a big difference. Mac Jones has a great completion percentage, but he doesn't throw the ball down the field. He has arguably the best defense in the NFL right now. And
that's because he works within Bill Belichick's system. Bill Belichick is he's short pass. He's a short passing.
And that helps you as well. Also, be successful because that's limiting your opportunities to take risks. So that makes the game a little easier for you to manage.
And we've seen when he has tried to take some risks, he throw a bunch of interceptions.
Yeah. And you think about it because I've never been a big fan of Alabama quarterbacks. I think I think because they have so much first round talent around them everywhere, it's hard for you to not succeed in an Alabama system. Like Mac Jones got into the perfect spot. Like Jalen Hurts doesn't have a support system around him. Like Mac Jones went to the best possible spot that Mac Jones could go to. You went to a coach that is like, short passes over the middle with your tight ends. We're not really going to give you a super great wide receiver. You'll have Kendrick Bourne and Nelson Aguilar as your speedsters, but Nelson Aguilar is 50-50 on whether or not he's going to catch the damn ball or not. And we're going to give you a run game. We're going to give you a great defense. So, I mean, that
don't
to
lose
me,
the game.
Yeah. Yep. And you control the game. You control the momentum. And, I mean, really for Mac Jones, that was the best possible spot. And for Jalen, like I said, to be where he is, basically 13 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. Prior to yesterday, he's 13-5. So basically, almost 3 touchdowns to 1 interception. That's not terrible.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it remains. Now I can see your concern though. It's It's definitely, you know,
I just for me
personally,
I
you can make a case either way. So the time will tell for sure.
Yeah, like I said, you can that judgment. I don't care who if you have great weapons all you want, but I think if you have bad judgment, you have bad judgment. That's just me. We'll see. Like you said, there's a lot of football to be played, and we'll see if it gets better. But for me, it's just a personal thing. Wait. So what do you think there, Kenny? What's your hot take?
I think it's time for us to stop calling Sean McVay the boy genius. I think he's starting to get a little exposed here. He asked for Matthew Stafford, and everybody's talking about he's injured, but I just don't see that. And that was the question going in, whether Matthew Stafford was going to be the guy that was going to lead. And this is the guy that you wanted, and you're supposed to be a boy genius, and you start out 7-1, and then now you guys have just been reeling ever since then. So I just think it's time that we stop calling this guy a boy genius, because it's a lot of talent. It's a lot of talent there in LA. So there's no excuse in terms of why they're struggling in this way. They're healthy for the most part. Besides, of course, losing Robert Woods, but then you get OBJ. So again, you really don't have much of an excuse in terms of why you're struggling the way you are. And I think when you're struggling this way, the first place that we look at is at the head coach. And so we gotta look at Sean McVay, and we gotta ask the question: is he really an elite coach? And to me, this is going to be, this is going to tell us the truth over these next few weeks whether he's an elite coach.
Yeah, it's not like they don't have another guy in Van Jefferson. If you ask Van Jefferson, I thought he played quite well, honestly, in that game. So he like you said, he does have a pretty good arsenal.
Yeah, but I think that's a big misconception. I think in sports is when you bring a bunch of dynamic personalities and dynamic talent together. I think if you look traditionally, whether it's college basketball, whether it's pro basketball, it doesn't work.
It takes a special skill as a coach to bring them to make those talents work.
But the people got to mesh. And
absolutely, that's what I mean. Yeah,
it's great in Tampa Bay because you have Tom Brady there, but that could be a disaster with all those different personalities. And you had Deshaun Jackson, then he left and went to Vegas, and he looked pretty good the other night. You bring in OBJ, but then you lose Robert Woods, so now Odell's having to play a role he wasn't trying to play. Von Miller's in there. You got a bunch of people, and I think Dallas has had this issue as well. Who do you play when you got a bunch of good players at one particular position? And so egos start getting in the way. There's no camaraderie because everybody's mix and mash. We've talked about the Lakers on this show a couple times. Mm-hmm. I think when you put a bunch of people together, even the past Lakers with Karl Malone and them, it's tough to get skilled position players to know what the heck they're doing. And I think we understate learning a new offense and timing and rhythm and
chemistry. It's all about that chemistry with your quarterback.
And
no off-season workouts, no OTAs, no throwing the ball with them, getting the feel for them. And then again, Odell Beckham Jr. is doing typical Odell Beckham Jr. getting hurt. He's got bad backs and everything else. So I mean, that guy just honestly he can't catch a break. And honestly, he kind of came into the season where he didn't have enough time to build up a rapport even with his quarterback. So we're expecting a lot from him based on past talent. But honestly, we haven't. He hasn't.
But I think that's more so because of Robert Woods going down. I think he was going to be the third wide receiver, and he's kind of been thrust into the role that they weren't expecting him to have to contribute in this manner. So that makes it even harder. So I see your point.
Yeah, and I
got questions about Sean
McVay. Even with Tom Brady and Tampa last year, they looked bad before the bye week. They came back off the bye, and they looked like a completely different team. I think we've seen a bunch of different quarterback movement. We look at Cam. Cam looked decent a week before, and last week he looked god-awful. Mac Jones looked very inconsistent early on, but we're seeing teams picking it up. Tua looked great this past week. He's looked awful in other weeks. So I think Russell Wilson, when he first came back, he looked awful. So getting all these different moving pieces when you don't have a run game just makes life really, really difficult. And when you have that many pieces, you're trying to make everybody happy, and you're young, it's tough. So I think he's still very good. I think he diagrams.
No, I'm not saying that he's not. I'm not saying he's bad. I just think that the genius thing, we might have to revisit that. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, because I mean, you think about it. He as much as Sean McVay likes his new toy and Matt Stafford, he has a quarterback that's not afraid to push the ball down the field. You got to kind of treat him like you did Jared Goff. You gotta run the ball first, then you got to let Matt pass, because Matt is basically going back to his Detroit Lions days where, all right, I'm the only guy. I'm just chucking it up there and hoping to God somebody in my same uniform catches it. And to me, that's what Matt's having to do. He's having to carry the load of the team. He's got good receivers now with him. But again, if Matt has to force the ball, if Matt has to hold it, if he gets hit, whatever, because they don't have another option, they're one-dimensional, just got to stop the pass. They don't have a run game that we got to worry about. So to me, that's where the Rams are also hurting, is they're not relying on the running game. They're not being physical on the offensive line. I think the defense has started to not be as physical, which I think a lot of that comes with, you have Aaron Donald is getting double teamed. And you would think with Aaron Donald, Leonard Floyd, and Von Miller, even Von Miller being old, like just those three dudes on the field, you would think that would be like
Jalen Ramsey on the outside.
And Jalen Ramsey on the outside. Yeah. But I'll be honest too, I think we got to kind of step back a little bit from Jalen being like the best cornerback in the league, because we've seen now twice in the playoffs last year against Green Bay and this game against Devontae Adams. Jalen Ramsey, I mean, he's not bad. I'm not going to sit here and say he's a below average cornerback, but Devontae Adams owns Jalen Ramsey, and he owns him a lot.
Well, I mean, Devontae Adams is, a lot of people would he's the number one receiver. So, or the best. Some people call him the best receiver in the league. So, getting torched by him is not exactly, a surprise. I guess I would say. But I think the other thing that Sean McVay has to do, and to Tony's point, is it's kind of like that adjustment that Kansas City made in terms of utilizing the run more and being a little more conservative in their attack offensively. Sometimes I think that's where Sean McVay, he's going to have to make that adjustment to, make the game a little easier for Matthew Stafford. To your point, Tony, run the ball alike. I looked at the stats from yesterday. They ran the ball 20 times. Like that's not winning football. Like you got to at least run the ball at least 25 times to kind of have some type of balance. And I think that's what's going to be their adjustment, and that's what I'm going to be looking to see what Sean McVay does in terms of making this offense a little easier for Matthew Stafford and put him in positions to be successful. Because that's what great coaches do. They put their quarterbacks in position to be successful. So if he does that, then he can get that boy genius tag from me again.
Yeah, I agree. All right, so Ray, what's your hot take?
My hot take, I'm going to kind of double down on a take I had, a week or two ago.
I know where you're going.
Let's have it.
New England will be the 1 seed in the AFC.
Yeah.
Oh, no, that's not where I thought he was going.
No.
I wouldn't either, but I like it. I do like it because they're playing just like it right now. They're heating up at the right time.
They're going to get that bye. You're going to have to go to them. I am really these next two games versus Buffalo, I think, are going to be huge.
Yeah.
Because I don't know who Buffalo is right now.
Absolutely.
And they face Indy.
Indy's good too.
Indy's solid. Yeah. They had a chance against Tampa Bay yesterday.
2-1, then there's no doubt in my mind they'll be the 1 seed. That defense is just playing out of its mind. And Mac Jones is not making the same mistakes he was earlier in the year. I think he's learning more rapport and camaraderie. Those tight ends are back, both healthy. The running game is healthy. So I see it. The AFC's been tough. I think Kansas City has an outside shot.
Yeah, I was just about to say that'd probably be their only competition
outside of that,
City, because Tennessee
Buffalo
is
and
fading.
Tennessee are gone.
Yeah, they're fading.
So there we go. We'll see what
it's amazing. Belichick didn't have to give up nothing for Mac Jones. Fell right to his lap like a golden nugget of Hall of Fameness.
Then he gets gets all those guys back from COVID on defense, and you sign Matthew Judon, and you're off to the races.
And on top of that, we forget he traded Stephon Gilmore this year.
I was getting ready to say that you let go of what was supposed to be your best quarterback.
He traded him, and the defense is still
crazy.
Top 5. So it's the genius in Belichick, and he's doing it again. And man, oh man, would I love to see him in Tampa in the Super Bowl. That would be great.
That would be crazy.
Oh, that would be beautiful to see the second round.
Oh my God.
Tom got him. Tom just barely got him. That last time.
Yeah.
As somebody that doesn't like Tom Brady and as somebody that doesn't like the Patriots, I will not watch that Super Bowl if that comes to me.
That's Jordan, LeBron. That's every
Yeah,
Kobe.
that's my
I gotta be honest with you. I don't even. I hate New
I'm
England,
sick of
but I would
Brady
actually.
too, but that
I would actually root for New England over Tampa, just because I hate Tom too. I don't like any of it. I don't like Belichick. I don't like any of it.
Honestly, I would root for Tom more because, to be honest with you, New England fans were always like so cocky with Tom, and they're like, "Oh, we're the greatest, we're the best." If New England was to be the only franchise that got 7 rings, oh my God, New England fans would never shut up. Like it would never be.
But you know what though?
Yeah.
The other side of that too though is if Brady was to find a way to win that, like you would never hear the end of Skip Bayless. Like,
oh yeah, that's true.
That's true.
Well, Kenny, to be honest with you, even as a Cowboys fan, we're never going to hear the end of Skip Bayless anyway.
Yeah. It's just
Like,
Tom
we're
Brady.
never
It's just
gonna
over the
hear
top. Like,
Well, and I've heard a lot of Brady hate from you Cowboy fans. You know he was a free agent. If Brady goes to Dallas, what does Dallas do the last year and this year?
I'll be honest.
Man, Brady would have came to Dallas. I'd have jumped on that wagon.
Last year, that defense was so bad. Not even Brady could have.
Yeah.
No, and to be fair, that's a terrible offensive line. That would be one of the worst offensive lines Brady would ever have in his entire career. Brady wouldn't tolerate that, and Brady wouldn't go there purely for the fact of
Dallas.
Well, yes, Bill Belichick
offensive lines.
Huh?
You're saying Dallas is one of the worst offensive lines?
That was one of the worst offensive lines last year.
Oh,
yeah, last year.
Okay.
And to be quite frankly honest with you, even though Bill Belichick was the dude running everything in New England, Bill knew what Tom needed to succeed. Tom kind of has a little bit of pull now in Tampa Bay, even with Bruce Arians and whoever the general manager is.
Of course, yes.
Jerry Jones calls all the shots.
Tom Brady was way too big a personality to
really?
go to Dallas. Jerry Jones ain't having that. Like he wouldn't have. He's too big of a personality. He would rain on Jerry Jones.
And to be honest with you, too, even though Dallas has never retired a number officially, I don't know how big of a fan Jerry would be even giving Tom number 12 for like 2 years.
Yeah, but he is in the Ring of Honor, so that's kind of one and the same.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
I'm still crying over the day that when Jimmy Johnson left.
Yeah, I get it.
That was the worst decision in Jerry Jones's history.
It's been a long
time. When he let him go and we brought in Barry Switzer, I was like, damn.
But I mean,
one more Super Bowl just on what Jimmy had given us, but after that, it's over.
He got one.
Yep.
It's been all downhill.
All right. Hey, Tony, what hot take you got? You got any hot takes in this one before we move on?
I don't really know. We can move on to the next topic.
Now, the next topic is talk about this Monday Night Football and the lack of offense. I mean, honestly, both quarterbacks are throwing for about 120 yards. The only thing that separates the two is Heineke has a turnover, and I believe that turnover turned into a pick six. Then that's really about the most eventful. I think they have about 62 yards. Washington has about 62 yards rushing, and Seattle has barely like 10. So, or they have 17 yards rushing. So, as you can see, there's no Chase Young on defense for Washington, and Seattle really has no defense right now other than Wagner and maybe Adams in the safety position. So, I mean, you're seeing a very pedestrian Monday Night Football game. I really just kind of hope Seattle can grind this out. It's 9-9. I just want to see why. I don't want to see anybody try to get further up on the Cowboys because we're already having our own issues. What do you think? What's the thought process on this Monday night, Tony?
Yeah, it's one of those. I honestly expected the Seahawks to come out a little bit better. And I say that because Russell Wilson's first 2 games back, he had to face the Packers and he had to face the Cardinals. Packers defense was solid, is starting to click on all the right times. So rough first game to come back to. Then he has to face division rival in the Cardinals, the number 1 seed, at least for the NFC side. So to me, I thought Russell Wilson would bounce back for sure. Even if the Washington defense lived up to the preseason expectations of being a elite unit once again with all the pass rushers, all those good linebackers, the secondary was always a question for Washington. And I thought for sure with that, even the Seattle offensive line isn't great, but it's not terrible. I thought, okay, Russ will get a little bit of his groove back. He's got DK, he's got Tyler. He'll be able to take advantage of that. And so far, unfortunately, that's not been the case, because I thought for sure Russell would come back and have a little bit of a better game. And to be honest with you, too, I didn't think it would be this close, because Washington's offense is just such a big question, even when their defense is solid. Like, to me, the only big player that Washington really has that's consistent is Terry McLaurin. Like, Antonio Gibson, not terrible. I'm not trying to trash talk Antonio Gibson or anything like that, but I mean, he's okay. Their offensive line is kind of banged up. They're in and out. I don't know if Sheriff is actually playing or not. And I mean, other than that, with McLaurin, who's the opposite guy on the other side of him? I mean, Taylor Heineke, for as much as I don't really care for that quarterback situation, I think Taylor's the best quarterback they have. I think he's actually better than Ryan Fitzpatrick. I think Fitzpatrick he's more of a risk taker than Taylor is. Like, Taylor will be a little bit smarter, a little bit more of a game manager with it, whereas Ryan Fitzpatrick's just throwing it to throw it, because why not? So to me, I thought it would be significantly different, even with Seattle's defense being garbage. But, you know, I think Seattle will still come out to win it, but we'll see.
All right, Ray, what's your opinion of this game?
It's pretty much what I expected. Both teams have struggled offensively really all year. I think from what we've seen, it's kind of par for the course. Taylor, he does some really good things, and then he'll just make some really dumb plays at very inopportune times. The fact that the score is 9-9, I think, is indicative of that. And one of it was a blocked extra point they got returned for 2 points.
I was trying to figure out where the 2 points came from.
Yeah, so it's just been kind of a mess of things. I think it will come down to the end, just because I think both offenses are really bad in the red zone, so they typically don't cash, and neither team really runs the ball great. So you're relying on quarterbacks to make plays, and I don't know. Russell Wilson just hasn't been Russell, and I didn't know what to expect with the tumultuous offseason, but I just don't see the same Russ from years past. And I don't know what's going on, but I just don't see that guy. DK had some drama. He was talking trash to Shannon Sharp. He hasn't looked super great. So I didn't really expect much. I expected a close, low-scoring game, and that's what we're getting, just because what dynamic player do you have on either side on offense, or really on defense for that matter? So it's kind of a ho-hum collection of talent, and I think we're seeing that in the score thus far in the game.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you on that one as well. Kenny, what's your thought process on this game?
Yeah, I think this is kind of one of those eliminated games, because basically whoever loses this game is just going to pretty much, be packing it in for the season. So that's why this one's going to go down to the wire. And I will say this about Washington. I was a little surprised, because coming into this season, I thought that their defense would be a lot better. And Ray, you could probably speak to this better than I could. But I thought last year that defense was really good, and I thought they were going to take a step forward this year, and they've really taken a step back, in my opinion. So I think that's really been the toughest part. And then, of course, losing your best defensive player, of course, is not going to help. But they were struggling even when he was there. So I think that's been a big reason, that they haven't had the success that they wanted to have, because we all know that, Ron Rivera is a defensive-minded coach. Yeah, so, and Seattle, I'm not surprised about Seattle. I said before the season started that this was going to be the year where everything kind of fell apart. And I think that to you guys' point about Russell Wilson, I just think he's over Seattle. I think he's out of there after this year. And I just think he's just playing out the string. And, to you guys' point, I think his heart is not in it. He's not all in for Seattle. So I think it's reflecting in his play, so to speak. And also, I don't think he's totally healthy. I think, he came back kind of quick from that finger injury, and I don't think he's totally healthy as well. So I think that's playing a role in it as well. So this is going to be one of those, last possession, low scoring, defensive struggles, and go down to the last possession if someone kicks a game with a field goal type of game. That's how I see this one playing out.
Yeah, Russell Wilson was asked in the pregame show about whether or not there was a rift between him and his coach or him and the team itself. He kind of said he kind of laughed it off a lot, kind of put his head down, laughed it off, and then kind of said he loves Pete Carroll. Get the typical media response to not cause the
You're
issue.
not going to say anything roughly.
But damn good and well, he's like you said. Hey, there is a rift. They're losing. They're 3-7. He's been injured. He came back, and they just don't have a whole lot there to work with. And I'm telling you, I really do believe that this is the last year for Russell Wilson in Seattle. I think
he's out of there. Pete Carroll's out of there. I think they're going to blow the whole thing up and just start from scratch.
And I wouldn't be surprised. I would love, personally, for me, I would love to see Russell Wilson go to a team like Miami and just give that team a rebirth. I think Miami with Russell Wilson could do magical things. They got a good defense. They got Jalen Waddle there that I think him and Russell Wilson, if they could have some time to develop the rapport, I think it could just be a phenomenal duo, just like you got with Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams. I think you can build something like that up there. I think Miami's not too far out of contention, really. They just need a good field general to run that team.
But Tua has been, to his credit, he's been playing well. He's been playing better, I should say. He is up and down. He's still young, so that's a good.
He's also injury prone too. That hip and everything else. He's always
that's actually not bad. I can see that happening too to Pittsburgh. I see a comment there, Anthony. That would be interesting as well.
And there was.
Go ahead.
So sorry, Ray. There was a lot of reports that New York might actually make a big push to try to get him, because you think about it, they have two of the first round picks within the top 10, and there's no really big quarterback that stands out to me that's even worth that. So why not be like, hey, Seattle, here's 2 first round picks. We'll give you Danny Dimes because ain't like we gonna do anything with him. Maybe
and you get your young quarterback to try to build with. So
yeah, and
I think the issue for Miami is that division's looking really tough for the foreseeable future.
Yeah.
If I'm Russell, do I want to leave Seattle to go in that division and look like I'm going to have to deal with Josh Allen and Belichick and Mac Jones for the rest of my career?
You think
that's fair?
I look at somewhere like Carolina, where it seems like there's definitely going to be in the quarterback market. The division seems to be down. Once they get Tom out of there, which you would think is only in the next year or two, there's nobody in that division that you really think about outside of that.
Do you think it's New Orleans maybe?
Yeah,
possible destination.
That
depends on how invested they are still with Winston. I think they still kind of like Winston on his youth.
But I think that Hill contract, although it's team friendly, I just don't know if I'm one of those kind of quarterbacks if I want to go there with that. Like go there splitting snaps and him take when Drew Brees.
Yeah, I get it.
I don't think a lot of your premier quarterbacks are going to sign up for that. And
but it's possible though too that if Sean Payton has a quarterback like Russell Wilson, that he kind of scales back that whole package with Taysom Hill and makes him more of the the slash type of guy where he's just running and receiving and he's not playing quarterback at all.
And plus, to be honest with you, if anything, if I was Russ, I would take the AFC East over the NFC West right now. Because, think about it. You go from – you really only got to worry about the Bills and the Patriots. You don't have to worry about the Jets. You had to worry about the Cardinals. You had to worry about the Rams. And occasionally you got to worry about the San Francisco 49ers. But even when the San Francisco 49ers are at their worst, they are not the New York Jets. So,
true.
Really, you go to kind of an easier division.
Can get a real quarterback, and that, Russ is, has played at Stanford. If they can get a quarterback in San Fran, I don't think Jimmy G's the guy. They got some talent on that offense and that defense too. Yeah. So I think that they're going to kind of.
But I would be shocked if they trade him within the division, though.
Oh no, that would never happen.
Everyone wants to see him twice a year.
No.
Yeah, so, that's fair.
But does Washington look attractive to him?
No.
With Chase Young, when Chase comes back healthy, you got Montez Sweat on the defense. And then you got McLaurin, he can throw the ball to.
I'm about to say I like McLaurin, but their running game is
the running game, and then he doesn't really have a solid number 2 option. Like defensively, that's why I would almost see Miami more, because Miami at least does have the defensive potential. Like we've seen them have the potential with it. Again, kind of the same. The O-line and the running game is a little bit more of a question, but I like their weapons better. They have Waddle, they have Parker, they have Gesicki at the tight end, all of which Russ would be a massive fan of. And you have to look at it too. He's also going to kind of want to go wherever Sierra wants to go, and she wants to go to a bigger market city. Miami is a little bit more attractive.
My knock against Washington was the Sierra factor. She ain't trying to come to DC.
I thought Miami looked pretty good to me for him to go to Miami. I feel,
But if you pick between DC and Miami, we know which one she's picking.
Yeah, she going down to South Beach.
No doubt.
Stationed in DC for 5 years. I don't exactly miss DC at all.
Yeah.
I don't know. Hey, listen, I lived in DC for a while. I like DC actually.
It ain't Miami though.
Yeah, it ain't Miami.
It ain't Miami. I mean, hey. But I like the seasons. I do like the seasonal change. Whatever. It is what it is. Let's move on to some top. Hey, did I miss anybody? Did I get everybody?
No,
I think you got everybody.
All right. Let's move on to the top 3 teams. I kind of like Arizona. I like Green Bay. And obviously now moving up in mine is New England. So I think New England, like we said earlier, I think they have a really good shot at taking over the AFC East. The AFC in general. Just given what Belichick is doing with Matt Jones in that defense. Tony, who's your top 3?
I'm going to go with Arizona 1. I mean, just for obvious reasons, Arizona's still clicking on pretty much all cylinders. I'm not really too concerned about them. I am going to put Baltimore at 2, even though there's a lot of questions with Lamar Jackson. He struggled yesterday through 4 picks, but I mean, it's a division rival, and they still managed to win the game. So either Baltimore was really bad or Cleveland was just that much worse, which I think it was just Cleveland was that much worse than Baltimore was. God, this is where it gets hard because I have to start mentioning teams that I do not want to flip and mention at all. And just for Freddie's sake, I'm not even going to do it. I'm going to probably put the Patriots at 3. And I say that because I'm not completely sold on the Patriots yet. Because when I looked at their previous schedule, they didn't really beat anybody that's like a super contending team in this 6-game win streak. They beat the Chargers, they beat up on the Falcons, they beat the Jets again. They've beaten a few of these teams, and they beat the snot out of the Browns. So, I mean, they really haven't beaten anybody that kind of stands out to me as like a commanding win. Kind of like Ray said, it'll be interesting to see how these next few games go with Buffalo, Indy, then the Jags, and then at Miami, which they have a history of doing really terrible at Miami. I could see them finishing like 10-7, 9-8. At the worst. So I'm going to have them at 3. At 4, I'm going to probably put I think I'm going to put
we're just doing top 3, Tom.
Oh, just top 3? Okay, cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, top 3 is going to give you the top 25.
Oh, yeah. No, I won't give you top 25.
He was on a roll.
I was going to give top 5, but I was going to struggle. I was going to struggle at 4 because the Packers are staying at the 5. I refuse to put the Packers any higher than 5. I absolutely refuse. It does not exist. And Freddie can hate all he wants. The Packers being anything above the 5 seed does not exist for me. Absolutely not. Absolutely.
All right, Ray, what you got in your top 3, buddy?
This is kind of a tough thing for me, but I gotta talk about what I see. So I'm gonna go 1. I gotta go Green Bay. That defense is looking amazing. Aaron Rodgers is figuring it out how to get it done. Adams has been out. Jones has been out. Linemen have been out. I don't know how they keep doing it, but they keep doing it. Arizona's really fallen off for me. I haven't been impressed by them in the last probably 5 or 6 weeks, even though they've played relatively well. So I'm going to go 2, Tampa. Tampa's still a 2 for me. They figure it out. I think they will continue to get healthier. They just lost another corner this past week. Leonard Fournette looked amazing yesterday all of a sudden. So I don't know where that came from, but they're still doing this without AB. I think we saw what they can be with Gronk back, and they'll just keep getting better. And then finally, I got to go New England. I don't love Matt Jones, but I think he's in the right system. He's making the right decisions, and that defense is keeping him in every game. So that's my 3.
And to comment to Dale, I don't like Aaron Rodgers. I was married to a Packers fan. Keyword was married to a Packers fan, so I have to root against
Me
the
too.
team.
Hey, listen, if I hear the word cheesehead one more damn time,
Right.
You know what? That was a day that I loved it. Because let me tell you something. When the day I divorced her, I burned everything in the house that had any relevancy to the Green Bay Packers.
Exactly.
Let
And to
the
be
hate
honest with
flow
you,
from
whether
guys.
whether
Let
Freddie
the
ever
hate
wants to
flow.
admit it or not, Freddie is a closet Green Bay Packers fan, so therefore I just have to go against it. So that's why I have Packers hate. I promise. That's the only reason why I have Packers hate.
I am not an Aaron Rodgers fan. I think he has come up so small in so many big moments, but they're getting it done this year. So I got to give it to them until they start losing. They're the best team in the league right now to me.
All right, Kenny, who's your top three?
So I got Arizona at 1 because I think they're still finding ways to win even without Kyler Murray, with him being down and D-Hop being down, and they're still finding ways to win. So I got to give them credit for that. And they've been the best team consistently, I think, over the entire NFL season thus far. So I'm gonna give them number 1. Number 2, I'm gonna go. Oh man, this is tough. I got like 3 teams for 2 spots, so this is really hard. So I'm gonna go. I think Kansas City is on there. I think Kansas City. We're forgetting about Kansas City. I think they're going to go on a run. I just got a feeling in my gut that they're going to go on a run. So I'm going to put them 2, and then I'm going to put Green Bay number 3 because I still got questions about Tampa Bay's defense.
Yeah, me too. Honestly,
yeah. So that's my only concern, and the fact that they Indy really had a chance to pull that game out. And Tampa Bay made some plays down the stretch. To Leonard Fournette had, again, to Ray's point, had a big game. So I think offensively, Tampa Bay, they can score with anybody. I still have some questions about their defense. So I'm going to go, I'm going to go, oh, man. Yeah, I'm going Arizona, Kansas City, and Green Bay.
Yeah, there was a comment just a second ago asking about why none of us put Tampa Bay in there. And I think you answered it pretty well. Look, Tom is Tom, no doubt about it. But I can't buy into their defense. I think their defense is suspect.
Yeah, I think that's the only question.
But for you guys, outside of Packer hate, how are you having the Packers who beat the Cardinals below the Cardinals?
So I can tell you why. So
Arizona.
Right. So here's my thing. It's kind of like most teams. So when you lose your starting quarterback, like you're 9 times out of 10, you're probably going to lose the game. Like,
that's my point.
Like that.
Everybody has a game that they lost.
Without their 2 best weapons.
But this is where I have to criticize Green Bay a little bit more. Yes, they went into Arizona and they beat Arizona, without Devontae Adams, without a lot of their big play guys. Green Bay lost to a Vikings team that is the Vikings. Like they're up and down. Yes, it's a division rival, so it's a little bit more competitive. This is the same team that Dallas, for all the struggles that Dallas has had, Dallas beat with basically a rookie backup quarterback that like never took a snap, and Aaron Rodgers struggled. To me, when you take Aaron Rodgers out of the equation, the Packers is one of the worst teams in football. Matchup to matchup, they are one of the worst teams of football. The only 2 bright spots that they have is Devontae and Aaron Rodgers. That's the only 2. And to me, they're
very one-dimensional.
Well, I'm not going to say that because I think that their running attack, that 2-headed monster they got a running back, is really good.
It is.
Defense has been playing better, although they gave up 28 points to the Rams on yesterday. But their defense has been playing better. So that's really, to me, that's why I put them over. That's why I have them over Tampa, because I think their defense is better. And again, to Tony answered it, the reason why I have Arizona at 1, because 1, they got the best record in the league, and 2, because they've still found ways to win without their starting quarterback. So that's why I got them over.
And to Coach's point, because Coach always points this out that Green Bay has a good coach. No, Mike McCarthy looked like a great coach with Aaron Rodgers. Mike McCarthy looks like a great coach with Dak Prescott. LaFleur looks like a great coach because he has Aaron Rodgers.
I'm gonna give him some credit though, because they were still competitive with Kansas City that game when Aaron Rodgers was out. That was a close game. So I'm gonna give him a little bit. I'm not Dan Orlovsky saying he's a top 3 coach in the league. I think that's a bit of a reach. But I do think he's a good coach.
Aaron, I don't know with the Packers. My problem with the Packers too is they don't have their running game is horrible right now. Aaron Jones only has 563 yards, 19th in the league, and he had 23 yards on 10 carries today against the Rams or yesterday against the Rams.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest with you,
sold on Aaron Jones. I don't think they have.
I like AJ Dillon. He runs hard. I like AJ Dillon.
And I'll be honest with you, that defense is so suspect because it's only going to take one team to figure out that defense. Like that defense is always suspect to me. That was the issue I've had with them for the last 2 years. The defense looks really good at one point, and then it kind of starts to get to the end. That defense looks like garbage, and that to me is why I can't do it because right now is Packers defense hot? Yes. Give it about another 6 weeks.
City are in the same position. They both have suspect defenses.
Oh yeah,
but and that Minnesota team should have beat Arizona. Just so we're clear.
100%. They should have.
All right, we're gonna move on now. Let's move on to somebody else that I'm kind of curious about. Cam Newton. Is he done? Is Cam Newton done? Me personally, I think he's done. I just don't think he has it anymore. I think he's a good backup now. I just don't think he commands it anymore. I don't think he has the same command as he had back in his younger days. Tony, what do you think? Is Cam Newton done, or is he just on bad spots?
I think it's bad spots. I think it's also too early right now for his second run with Carolina. He filled in for the Arizona game. He did really well for being brand new. Because to be honest with you, Arizona wasn't prepared for Cam Newton. So that's a hard person to play against. Like Miami is a little bit more prepared because Carolina came out and said, "Hey, this is going to be our starter." They're like, "Okay, so we got to prepare against Cam." Right now, if we go off of last week, yes, Cam is done. I don't know if he continues to stay the quarterback for Carolina because I think Sam Darnold would be a better option than Cam. But to be honest, I don't know if Cam gets another start. There's a lot of teams throughout the season that needed a quarterback fill-in, and they didn't call Cam. Washington needed a quarterback fill-in for Ryan Fitzpatrick, technically, if Heineke went down. They didn't call. Denver has kind of needed him in place for Teddy Bridgewater because they don't want to go back to Drew Lock. They didn't call him. Same with Miami. They went with Jacoby Brissett instead of him. So there have been a lot of teams that needed a quarterback that didn't call Cam. So I think to me, Cam is done. I think after this season, he should retire. He should retire with the Panthers. They're the team that drafted him. They're the organization that drafted him. He holds all the Panthers franchise records. And I don't think it would be a bad way for Cam to go out. You came back, you contributed what you could to the team, but it's kind of the end.
Let's be honest. You know how you're done? You know you're done when a better quarterback comes up on the open market. Let's say, for example, Russell Wilson. If they were to decide to trade Russell Wilson, you gonna tell me you wouldn't give up Cam Newton for Russell Wilson in a heartbeat?
Oh, 100%.
Oh yeah, but
so that's how you know. What I'm saying is that's how you know you're done.
No,
when your league status is done, you're done.
That's a preeminent quarterback. Now, if you trading,
No, but I'm saying like that's how you know. Cam Newton was a problem. Right. Cam Newton got you in the Super Bowl, but he's not that same Cam. That's how you know you're done. You're hanging on to something.
I don't know about done. Maybe done as a starting quarterback or as a top, as a upper tier quarterback. Maybe that he's done as. I could give you that. But in terms of him being that he should give it up totally, like the dude.
Man, listen, if you can't get back to a Super Bowl, you're done. If you don't have the opportunity to get your team back to a Super Bowl, in my opinion, you're hanging on for breadcrumbs.
Well, and Kenny,
you're hanging on for breadcrumbs. All it's going to do is tarnish your reputation.
It's been a bunch of quarterbacks that have hung around way longer than they should.
I agree.
So I'm not going to say that he's done.
Well, Kenny, I'll ask you though. Do you think Cam is willing to accept that? Because I don't think he was a big fan of it in New England, to be honest.
Well, maybe so. I can understand that. That's my whole thing. Like if we're talking about him being done as a starting quarterback, then I probably would say that's probably the case because I said after last year, I didn't think he'd get another opportunity as a starting quarterback, but he has gotten an opportunity here. And now that
that's what I'm saying. Like, would you really want to tarnish your reputation to be relegated as a backup quarterback, a second stringer?
If you still want to play,
that's like hanging around too long.
But if you still want to play, then you take the opportunity if the opportunity is presented to you because
that's what I'm saying. You want to play, but the game is passed
as a second quarterback. You're one play away from being on the field. Yeah. So if he wants to take his opportunity and be a backup quarterback somewhere, I say more power to him.
Hey, more power to him. Me personally, if I'm playing at that elite level, I don't know. I'm a competitor. I don't want to be a backup.
No, I understand. I totally understand that. I understand as a competitor, and I think that's where Cam was in terms of balking at being a backup. So he kind of waited to get an opportunity to start again to kind of prove that he still has something left. But this was a bad game. But to me to say that he's done, I think it's just a little premature.
Yeah, because I mean, you think about it. You look at even all the teams at the beginning of the season that knew that they needed a quarterback or needed a solid backup. And now I don't know if they contacted Cam or not. We'll probably never know whether or not they did. But I think that to me is what's going to hurt Cam, is because if there are teams calling, they're probably like, hey, like we want you, but you're not going to be the main guy unless something happens. And even then,
you hit rock bottom when they say, hey, we want you to come play for us, but you're going to be on the veteran minimum, guy. You're going to be right down there with the bottom of the barrel.
He did
that. That's where you are right now. That's how you know you're done. When you're at the bottom of the barrel, playing for a 1-year contract at the vet minimum.
But I just disagree. I think the situation in Carolina is tricky because there's a bunch of quarterbacks that will be available next year. But do I think that if Cam went to an environment where they built the system around him, if he was in Pittsburgh, would he be much worse than Ben? No, I think if you give him
that Ben's another one. I think Ben needs to go ahead and hang it up too.
I think that's the case. Like if he goes somewhere where you can build around him, like there's no talent in Carolina right now. It's Christian McCaffrey, the offense was built to be around him, and he's never there. I think we saw that Cam had a really bad game, but I think in the right environment, in the right system, where he has an offseason to actually learn the offense, where the playbook's open to him, you can.
He did. He had that with Belichick, the best coach in the league. The best coach ever right now. He had that.
I think there were other circumstances behind
and he got beat out by Mac Jones.
Who's going to win Rookie of the Year?
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. But he got beat out. He had
at the time he was playing, he was playing well in the preseason. And Belichick spoke very highly of him. So I don't.
I'm sure he probably did. And he put him on the bench
prior to that COVID.
Exactly. So I think that was. I think this.
But Ray, I have to ask: what team do you see next year that needs a quarterback? Do you think that would be willing to build around Cam? Because you got to think about it. So Cam is what, 31, 32 years old? Like
I think he's 32, I think.
He's going to have to be a transition guy. So to you, is there really a team that stands out there that is like, okay, Cam, we're willing to build around you for a couple years, but just know a couple years you're going to be out. You're not going to be the guy anymore. Like that. Like that's my issue is I don't really see a team that would be willing to do that for 2 years that isn't almost in that win now mentality.
33 next year.
But he's had some time off, so he's 32, but he's more 30 in football years, but he's had a tough 30. I think Denver is an opportunity. I don't think Teddy Bridgewater is significantly better. I think he's a much better backup in that offense than Drew Lock would be. I think he would be able to compete with Jameis in New Orleans. I don't think Trevor Simeon's an answer. I think he'd be a better backup.
I think he'd compete in San Francisco.
I was literally about to go there next. I think in that offense with Kyle Shanahan with a Cam Newton at quarterback, I think they could do some really, really good things there as well. So I think there's quite a few places. For what it's worth, he could replace Russell Wilson in Seattle when he leaves. I think there are a bunch of different holes. It'll just be curious to see how everything moves. Green Bay might need a quarterback next year. He's played in New England. He's shown he can play in cold weather. So I think there's a lot of different places, but I think would be a top 5 backup on any team, which means I think he could start for 5 or 6 teams, but you do have to cater to his style. You need a deep threat. You need some intermediary. You need a running back that can catch, and you're going to have some of that read option kind of stuff so that he can use his legs. Like he is not going to be a guy that's going to drop back 40 times a game and beat you and take you to the playoffs, but he can throw it 20 times a game off play action, off bootlegs, off read option, and be a successful quarterback. I don't think he's better.
Right.
I think Dunn's too strong of a word.
Yeah, because again, worst case scenario, he could be a backup somewhere. You can't tell me that he can't be a backup somewhere.
Sure, he could be a backup.
Still quarterbacking in the NFL, anything.
But Michael Vick's playing days were done. Michael Vick, he plays the second row.
Maybe it's a question whether he's done, whether he's going to get another starting opportunity. That's legitimate. There's definitely.
As a matter of fact, he could definitely fit in Cleveland. I think he'd be a good
yeah.
Cleveland.
So, but I don't think he's done. Yeah, I'm with you, Ray.
Oh,
No,
we got to let that one rest. We could go all day on that one. But no, I feel you. I feel you. Tony, do you have anything else you want to say on that one, or are you good?
No, I'm good.
Tony's over there still going through that top 5 teams over there. I didn't get to go to number 6. I didn't get to go to number 7. Hey, no. Hey, all right, we'll move on. We'll move on. So I guess let me see here. I know I had the last one on here. Zach Wilson, is he a bust? For me, I think Zach Wilson is a little mechanical, and I think he's a little predictable. I'm not really completely bought in. I wasn't completely bought into Zach Wilson from the get-go. So for me, I think he's going to be I think he's a backup, good backup. I just can't put, especially in New York, man. They're going to eat him alive. I mean, I'm not sold on Zach Wilson at all, one bit. As a matter of fact, I think they should have taken Mac Jones before they took Wilson. But I think Wilson was a little too high in the draft, to be honest with you. Tony, what's your thought process?
I agree, because I looked at it. The 2 quarterbacks that I trusted the least coming out of college was Mac Jones, and the other one was Zach Wilson. I didn't think Zach Wilson should have been taken 2nd overall. Honestly, I thought Justin Fields should have. I'm happy Justin didn't, because I think Justin has more potential. I mean, Zach Wilson, he had like one good season with BYU. BYU doesn't face a whole lot of ranked opponents. The few times they did, he completely lost. BYU got destroyed every time. He's in probably one of the worst situations you could go to. You're with the New York Jets. They have really nothing good about them other than the fact that they share the name New York, and that's it. He doesn't have a good wide receiver around him. He doesn't have a running game. He has one decent left tackle that's a giant, and the dude is hurt right now. To me, it kind of reminds me of the Blaine Gabbert situation in Jacksonville. They literally threw this kid to the fire, and they said, try what you got. If it works, cool. If not, is what it is. I think he has 2-3 years. I think it's another Sam Darnold situation where if the kid is talented and has potential, he gets burned out. He learns from a terrible system, and then he either ends up being a career backup or he gets traded and somebody else tries to reboot his career. But right now, I think it's a little too early. But looking at it right now, I think Zach Wilson was a reach. Don't think he's a bust, but I think he was a reach.
Amen. All right, what you got there, Mr. Ray?
I agree. I think it's hard to judge him based on where he is, but you got to judge him based on where he is. And he's made a couple good throws, but when you take someone at number 2, and I think when we look back at this draft, these quarterbacks got a lot to talk about. Trevor Lawrence has not looked like, even though Jacksonville's awful, I thought he would be better. Zach Wilson obviously hasn't looked great. Trey Lance hasn't really got a chance to play. So really, all these quarterbacks that came out this year, I think we're going to have to look at them a little tougher in maybe 3 to 5 years. But I just don't see. I don't see it. I don't see where he goes, that he can walk in and be the starter. I don't see the talent. Now he's starting to get beat up, which also is something that you don't want to do or have at that position. So I think this is on ownership and management. They know that team sucks. You should not have put him in this position. I don't know why teams, and it's a lot of teams do this, they feel so pressured to win now when you know you don't have a win now team. Allow him to sit. Brady sat. Rodgers sat. People sit and are successful. If you're playing realistic long game, Mahomes, like if you want these guys that you're investing so much of your future to do well, it's okay to wait. It's okay to sit. Bring in the Brian Hoyers. Bring in, those guys that'll help show them how to play the game, show them how to be a professional, and protect them from getting their heads beat up until you can build, whether it's through free agency and going and getting linemen like Cleveland did. I think Cleveland's done a great job of building around Baker. Baker just hasn't got it done. And I think the Odell thing kind of threw a wrench in it because for a while they went on a nice little run. But yeah, I think he has some talent, but I don't see him being worthy of the number 2 pick. And I think he's going to have maybe a long career if he's smart and he's a good backup, but I don't think he's a starter in this league.
Yeah, I don't think so either. All right, what you got there to wrap it up, Mr. Kenny?
Yeah, I'll be quick. I just think the race point is we talked about this with New England. You have to put guys in position to be successful. You have to, surround, especially with young quarterbacks, you have to surround them with talent and give them an opportunity to be able to be successful. And I think this was the perfect scenario to where that this kid first year because they don't have the skill position talent. They don't have anything at running. They don't have anything at wide receiver. You got questions on the offensive line. He's already gotten beaten up to Ray's point. And I just think they should have just sat him for this year because not only that, you're taking a guy from probably one of the smallest markets in the country to the largest markets in the country. Like that's literally putting this guy, you're basically just talk about being a fish out of water. Like you're putting this guy in the belly of the beast. Like I'm a New Yorker. Like New Yorkers have no patience. Like once you're a starter, they expect you to produce. And once you don't, you're getting booed, period. End of story. So it's just that they didn't put this guy in a position to be successful. And I think that they stunted his growth. And I don't know, what's going to be the long-term effect. I think Ray made a great point is that this quarterback draft is going to be one of those drafts that we're going to look at in 3 to 5 years. And we're going to get our answers to our questions because we don't know right now. It's a lot of question marks in this quarterback draft. And there's nobody coming next year to say that there's going to be anything in this next year's draft. So it's going to be.
I think the quarterbacks for this year's draft coming up are not really all that great.
That's what I mean. So it's going to be even more scrutinized because next year's draft class of quarterbacks is not that good.
Yeah, and I'm kind of piggyback off that because if you think about it, like who were really the top 3 quarterbacks out of this year's draft that people were looking at? Trevor Lawrence, Mac Jones, Justin Fields. They were the big time names. Like pretty much Trey Lance, maybe if he gets in the right situation because he comes from North Dakota State. I mean, they had success with a couple quarterbacks before, and then Zach Wilson was your next best option as far as BYU. To me, it was one of those. I think some of these teams just reached. They were like, well, if we get them in the right situation, we put them in the right spot, they'll be good. But yeah, I think this is one of those drafts that people were like, oh, this is the draft for the quarterback of the future. No, it's not. This was not the draft. Not unless you were the Jacksonville Jaguars and you had the number 1 overall pick. This was not the quarterback draft of the future.
Well, again, to Ray's point, though, Trevor Lawrence has not played well. I live in Jacksonville, so I have the unfortunate pleasure of having to watch these guys every week. So the guy's struggling because, again, it's not the talent is just not there. You need offensive talent to be successful as a quarterback.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I was never really sold completely though on Trevor Lawrence to begin with. I don't know. I just something about him. I still feel like he's just not a pro-ready type quarterback. I mean, I think Mac Jones was. I think you get somebody like Joe Burrow. Man, a generational kind of guy. Of course, even Joe Burrow, you saw what happened his first year, tore every damn ligament in his knee. He had to come back his second year to actually prove that he is that guy. And I think with Zach Wilson, they're throwing him out there, expecting him to turn his team around or do something crazy like Joe Burrow, and of course, it's not going to happen. He's just not that type of player. Mac Jones, I tell you, that New England team, y'all watch out. That New England team, I think, is going to be something special this year. I think they're going to surprise a lot of people. Even me, including me. I really didn't see this happening until the last 5 games they've won, and it's just like, man. I mean, who's going to start? It's just crazy. Belichick is doing it again.
But I think that's the thing, though. I think if you swap, put Mac Jones in with the Jets and put Sharkland in New England, I think we look at them both very differently. I think
absolutely
right now looks like, oh, he's Mac Jones because he has to do very little.
Hello.
If he was in somewhere like the Jets, if he was in Jacksonville, he would not be having this year. And even like I said, he has 8 picks and he's not actually doing a lot. So,
I don't know, but if Belichick believed highly in those type of quarterbacks, he would have drafted up to try to get one of them. He didn't. Well, he knew they were going to go first, but he didn't believe in them. He waited for what the guy he thought was going to be the right for him.
Yeah, well, and you got to think too. Look at how much Bill would have had to give up to get that number 1 overall pick from Jacksonville. Like don't
that's what I'm saying. Yeah,
Bill's never really the type that's like, oh, I'm stingy with my draft picks, or I'm fraudulent with them. But I mean, it. Yeah, to me, I think just because he also has that very close relationship with Nick Saban, and again, he had the system that fits Mac the best. Like everybody else, like Ray said, if you put Mac Jones on the Jets and you put Zach Wilson on the Patriots, is a totally different conversation. And even the same thing, even if they completely mixed everything up, if like Justin Fields went to San Francisco or Trey Lance went to, New York, or whoever went to Chicago, or maybe Chicago doesn't trade up and even get a quarterback. Maybe they go to like the Giants. Maybe the Giants draft somebody and get rid of Daniel Jones. Like there's a lot of questions that could go into that. But I think for me, it's all about the quarterbacks who landed in the right system. I think if the Bears can get rid of Matt Nagy, then Justin Fields will be fine. I think once once Urban Meyer gets rid of the god-awful coaching staff that he has, once he gets rid of the god-awful coaching staff that Urban Meyer has there, I think Trevor Lawrence will be fine once Jacksonville kind of starts to bring that around him. I think Zach Wilson's in for a rough time because the Jets are just a hot garbage mess. Mac Jones is going to be fine. I really don't see any issues with him. And I think Trey Lance, because he's with Kyle Shanahan, he's with the 49ers who have talent, I think Trey will be fine. I think, unfortunately, Zach's going to be the odd man out of that group of five. He's going to be the odd man out.
Yeah, I can see that.
I agree with you. It's going to be interesting to see what happens the second half of this season and see what these guys actually do. Let's go ahead and make a segue over to NBA. That's the next step, next stop for these NBA hot takes. My hot take is I suspect the Rockets might win a third game. We beat the Charlotte Hornets. We beat the Chicago Bulls. I think this team is starting to pull it together. And John Wall is in talks to come back. He's going to come off the bench. I don't know if that's really what they're going to do, but I know he's in talks. He wants to come back and play some basketball. Let's be honest. The Rockets are paying him $91 million damn dollars. They need to play him. It's crazy to play a man $91 million and have him do nothing but count paper. What do you think, Tony?
Are we doing NBA hot take, or you want me to comment on that?
Oh, you can comment on that, or you can give your hot take, whatever you feel, whatever strikes your fancy.
I'm going to give a hot take. The Lakers finish as the 8th seed in the West and have to do another play-in game to get to it. That's for you, Freddie, because the games don't matter till Christmas. Y'all struggling to be 500.
That would be rough. Frank Vogel's definitely getting fired. If that's the case.
Yeah, they're 11-11 right now.
He's definitely
they're the 8th seed right now. They're tied.
If that happens,
the thing is he? They're saying, well, it's going to be like the Miami Heat. They start off slow, and then they're going to kind of gradually build into this the team that they're supposed to be. Well, let me tell you something. When your team literally just got their AARP cards, you don't got a lot of time to wait. You don't got a lot of time to wait. Listen, don't let them get any younger.
And it's apparent they can't make it work without LeBron James. And that's going to be the key thing. If LeBron is out, they're done. But even with LeBron, it's not that much of a different Lakers team. So,
watching the LA Lakers is like watching Uncle Drew in real life.
That's a great
what I'm saying? Like when you go to the LA4 or when you go to the Staples Center, they should be handing out like 3 things have been gay.
That's a great line. That's funny.
All right. Hey, so what do you got over there, Ray? What's your hot take, man?
I had a couple, but I'm going to go with this one. The Golden State Warriors will have the Most Improved Player Award winner and the MVP award winner this year. I love
the Most Improved.
Jordan Poole. He will be Most Improved. He's been phenomenal. I think the only thing that can hamper that is I don't know who's going to the bench when Klay Thompson comes back. And in that case, he probably that to me, that's going to be the biggest thing that'll affect his Jordan Poole's minutes. Right.
Yeah.
Because you still got to play Andrew Wiggins as well. So
Wiggins plays great defense, and he just
that's what I'm saying. So I think that's going to hurt him.
Well, I guess we're going to see the telltale because they just sent Wiseman and Thompson down to the G League to see how well they're going to do. So that's going to be the telltale sign as to whether or not they even have to worry about that.
Yeah.
And I think that'll be – but I tell you, if you got Draymond out there with Poole, Clay, Wiggins, and Curry, that's a heck of a final five that you got to match up with. It's a small five, but –
Hey, you throw Wiseman in there.
Or you throw Wiseman.
Yeah, they got some different combinations. Kerr has some great
And Kerr's going to exploit all that
That's
stuff.
what I mean. Like, he has some great combinations that he can use in terms of if he wants to go defensive, he wants to go speed lineup, he wants to, go big because he could throw Kuminga in there with Wiseman and Draymond and kind of make them a long front line. So he's got a lot of toys to play with.
Yeah, he does. All right, let's get your hot take. We're about to hit that Warriors on the next topic anyway. So what's your hot take, Kenny?
I'm going to double down on the Warriors and say that they will not break their record for regular season victories. I think they'll take their foot off the gas in the second half to make sure that they're healthy going into the playoffs, especially with Klay Thompson trying to manage his minutes and trying to figure out the rotations and things of that nature. That's going to cause them to take a little bit of a step back because Kerr is going to play around with different combinations. So I think that's going to have an impact on their record. And I think as a result of that, they're not going to break their regular season record.
That's the way to start off the next question. All right. Yeah, absolutely. I tell you, man, if it's all going to depend on Thompson and Wiseman and when they come back is whether they can break that season. But I'll tell you this, though, man, anytime you got a guy like Steph Curry leading the way, though, man, damn. Hey, I wouldn't be surprised if they did beat it, but I think it's
I just think they're gonna take their foot off the gas and like I said, with the playing around in different lineups and things like that, trying to figure out the different ways they're going to beat you, getting ready for the playoffs. I think they'll take a step back.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting to see. All right, Tony, so what's your thought process on these Warriors? Can they break the regular season record they set last go around? Can they beat that record?
I don't think so. I mean, you have Steph playing at a significantly higher level than when they played with that, but you also had a completely healthy Klay Thompson. You had a completely healthy, Draymond Green. You had Iggy playing decent for him the last time they did that. This time around, I don't really see it. They have good pieces. They're still going to be a good young team. I think they're going to be more of a formidable opponent in the West than people probably initially thought coming into the season. But no, I don't think they beat their record. I think they probably finish as like the 2 or 3 seed in the West, more than anything.
All right, Mr. Ray, you want to wrap that one up?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think they're good if they're close. I think they'll go for it. But I do think down the stretch, it's kind of that old adage of do you rest players or do you play players to keep them in good rotation? I think when they went that 73-9 year, they saw that it wore on them at the end of the year, and I think it came back to bite them in the finals. Granted, they were up 3-1 that year, so I don't know how much of that you would say was really that had them come up short. But I think they've seen that, and health is a fickle thing. They've had some injuries, but I think they will get close. I think they will be a 1 or 2 seed. I just think their bench, Gary Payton, the second has been playing well. Bielitsa. Some of these quote-unquote cast-offs are just playing phenomenal just because the system works. And I've been very critical of Kerr as a coach, but I think he's showing he's all right. He's done some really good things. And I think a lot of that is the culture there that Steph really and Draymond also, they really dictate that. So I think they'll be there, but I just think down the stretch they're going to rest some, but they can't take them too far off the gas because you don't want to go into the playoffs. And if you fool around and end up with the Lakers in that first round matchup, I don't care how bad the Lakers have looked. That's not a team you probably want to play in the first round of the playoffs. So I think it'll be interesting to see how that goes.
Yeah, especially now that they're riding a good wave of momentum. You never want to give up the momentum if you have it.
Yeah,
That's interesting. So speaking of which, let's talk about MVPs. That's our next one, MVP topic. Who's playing like an MVP right now? I mean, I still like my boy Steph Curry. I just love Steph Curry. He's my MVP right now just because he's just playing so electric. We'll start off. We'll do a reverse behind the horn this go around. We'll start off with Kenny. Kenny, who's your MVP right now?
Of course you got to make a case for Steph Curry, but I got a couple other guys I'm going to throw in the mix as well.
Okay.
Before he got hurt, John Morant. I think he was playing at a really high level. I think he was averaging like 25-7 or something like that. So he's been playing at the MVP level as well. I'm going to put Trae Young in there too. Trae Young has been playing at a really high level. Had quite a few games, 30 and 10. So he's really kind of figured out the kind of stop the foul hunting and stuff like that. And he's just hooping. And I just think those two guys have been playing on a really high level. So if I had to do like a 1, 2, 3, it would be Steph, and then it would be Ja, and then it would be Trae Young.
Yeah, absolutely. I like Trae Young is one of those guys. I do like his game, and I'm kind of curious to see how well these Hawks go this year in the playoffs, given what they did last year.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so Mr. Ray, who's your MVP?
I think I said it last topic. I'm going with Steph as the front runner, but a guy that I don't think is getting enough credit, and I'm not sure why this is, to be perfectly honest. Kevin Durant still has the Brooklyn Nets in the East. James Harden, we talked about how bad he's played this year. We talked about the passion that was the Kyrie Irving situation, and Blake Griffin's now not even in the rotation, but he has those boys in the number one spot in the East that is pretty loaded. New York, the Knicks were supposed to come back better. The Bucks, some other teams, the Wizards have taken some steps forward, and they're still the one seed. So Philly, I don't have put a lot of stock in Philly just because he stays hurt. But there's been some movement in that conference.
Miami, we forgot about.
Yeah. Miami's another one. And somehow nobody's talking about Brooklyn or what Kevin Durant is doing. And they're the ones. So he's definitely my second. And I think as things get closer towards the end, he's going to continue to differentiate himself. But Steph's in one, but Kevin Durant's a close second for me.
Yeah, Tony, who's your MVP?
Yeah, I would definitely go with Steph as my number one. I would probably even tie Steph and KD as my number ones for MVP. I also agree with Kenny. Morant would have definitely been up there had he not gotten hurt, because he's playing out of his mind for sure. Trae Young for sure. You could probably even make an argument for Luka, because I mean the Mavericks are still competitive. I mean Luka is basically the heart and soul of the Mavs, so probably make an argument for him. But yeah, I think if I have to give it to one, I'm gonna give it to Steph.
Yeah, only thing with the Mavs is I don't know. Them and the Hawks are kind of in the same boat, that they're kind of, straddling that 500 fence.
Mm-hmm.
So,
but so are the Lakers. So I mean,
yeah.
The difference is the Mavs are in the playoffs at the 4th seed, and the Hawks are out of the playoffs at the 9 currently. So
that's true.
Yeah.
Hey, real quick, before we move on to this last topic, I remember, when Harden was speaking of Harden with the Nets, when he was playing with Houston, he was in all kinds of MVP race conversations. It just seems like since he's left Houston to go be with Brooklyn, that's not the case anymore, and he's just kind of gone by the wayside. Is Harden done, or do you think he's ever going to get back in those MVP conversations?
No, he's definitely not done. I think because when he first got to the Nets, before he got hurt, he was in the conversation for MVP, because he came in there and kind of really just hit the ground running. And Kyrie moved over to the 2, and he took over the 1, and they was rolling. So he was in the MVP conversation at some point. So he's far from done. I think what happened was that, and he kind of spoke to it, that he had to adjust. Like, he was one of those guys that played that foul hunting game, and like he had to adjust to the fact that the referees weren't making those calls like they were in previous seasons. So he had to adjust his game and really get to playing just playing basketball. And stop trying to, manipulate calls. And then once he started to figure that out, I think he's gotten a little better. I think the other thing was that he had to play himself into shape.
Right.
That hamstring injury kind of really, caused him not to be able to train in the off season like he wanted to. So I think that's also a factor as well. So I think he's still rounding into form, but he's far from done. I just think it's a matter of him adjusting to the whistles, and then also getting himself in tip-top condition.
Okay. All right. That brings us to our last topic for the night, and that's John Wall. What are they going to do with John Wall? I personally think they need to play the guy. I think he needs to be playing because he's coming. If you're paying $91 million, you should be on the floor. And if you're a competitor, if you really are a competitor, you should be on. And I know he wants to be on the floor. They don't want to put him in a starter position because they want to develop their young core. So can he can he let himself, be a backup, getting that high pay? And I don't know if he's going to be able to do that. I think it's still a toss-up as to whether or not he actually comes back. I don't know if he's going to take that bench role that's what Houston's wanting to give him. Tony, what's your thought process is? What are they going to do with John Wall?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest. I kind of look at it the same way with like the whole Ben Simmons thing in Philly. Just trade the dude. I mean, get something out of it because I mean, you can either eat his contract, and I mean, technically they don't have to pay him, but I mean, is kind of a waste of a roster spot because I mean, for Houston at this point, we know they're in a rebuilding point. Like Houston is just bad. I mean, ever since they got rid of Harden, they've been bad. So really, for Houston, they need to get something out of this because eventually, especially with the NBA, because it's such a player driven league, he may eventually just be like, "Look, I'm not going to do this, so either trade me or let me go, one of the two." And if I'm Houston, get what you can out of it. If you can give them to somebody, and if you can get a couple draft picks, maybe a couple players in return, go for it. Because I would rather get something out of nothing. Because if the dude says, hey, I'm not going to be a backup. Okay, bye. Like this is a team thing. Like you have to contribute. Now, if it was somebody at James Harden, KD's level, okay, we might have to have a little bit more of a conversation. But this isn't a dude that's going to make or break the Rockets to being in the playoffs or not. So to me, I say get what you can.
Problem is do they want to eat away that? Well, they're going to eat that $91 million regardless. Even if they trade him, they're still going to eat that $91 million. The problem is who out there wants John Wall? Because I don't think there's really a lot of offers coming in for him. Yeah. What do you think about that, Ray?
No, I agree. I think the best move is to trade him. I think the Ben Simmons situation makes sense just because of the numbers. I think there are a couple other teams. I think Boston could use a point guard. Even in, like I said, in New York right now, the Knicks have just benched or taken Kemba out of the rotation. So I think he could come. I think he would fit that kind of dynamic. They get up and down. I think there's a lot of different places he could play. I would love to see him play. I think he earned the right to play. Everybody killed him for that deal. He earned that contract. He brought life to the city of DC. He led that team. And if LeBron James wasn't in the East, they could have done some really amazing things. The other part that, and I don't think I got to talk about, was for the James Harden piece. I agree the conditioning is a big part, but I also think he's been in flux. And we kind of talked about it with football teams. That team never got to play together last year. They finally got it together in the playoffs. And then this year, it's just been a whole new set of group people. And then he hasn't had a defined role. So I think the calls thing, I think they purposefully overcorrected the same way I think they're kind of overcorrecting on LeBron and some of the texts and fines he's starting to get. Like, I'm not sure what the NBA is really doing in some of these cases with some of these suspensions and fines. But I would like to see John Wall gone. I do think it's tough to move him just because that deal is so big. And the people that you would have to move him for, like, I think he'd be a great fit in LA, but I don't think they're trading Russ back to Houston. I don't think they
want bad contract for another. Woo.
Yeah,
I think that's the sad part, is that deal just makes him almost untradeable because it's just so big.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you think about that one, Kenny? What's your?
Yeah, I just think that the contract is what's holding this up. Is that there's just too much money for a team. Teams are not willing to take on that much money, even if it is only for 2 years. They're just not willing to take on that much money because you gotta, in the NBA, you gotta match salaries in a deal. So that means you gotta give up. So you gotta, send some talent into Houston to get John Wall. I think the best case scenario is that, they find a way to do some type of buyout. I think that's where we're headed with this because I don't think anyone's going to make a trade for John Wall. I think they're just going to wind up having to buy him out. But I think what they need to do, and I think also John Wall is going to have to humble himself a little bit and just come off the bench and show that he can still play in this league. Because he did show I think it was 40 games last year, he averaged 20 points. So it wasn't like, it's not like John Wall can't still play. You can see clips out there on social media that he still got the quickness. He still got the, his athletic ability. He can still get to the basket. He can, do what he needs to do, being John Wall. So I just think he's going to need to humble himself and just come off the bench because it's a youth movement in Houston. And rightfully so. That's what they should do. They got a nice young backcourt with Kevin Porter Jr. and with Jalen. So I just think he's gonna have to come off the bench and show what he could do, with some bench minutes. Because even if he winds up, getting bought out and going to a team, if he wants to go to a playoff caliber team, that's probably going to be his role, is that he's going to have to come off the bench for some playoff caliber team. He's not going to find a situation where he could go to a team and start, I don't think. If he's going to go to a playoff caliber team, now he could go to a bad team and start. That's what he wants to do. But I think if he wants to have a chance at playing for a contender, he's going to have to accept the role off the bench. So I could even, I could see him in Milwaukee. Like, that would be a great situation for him coming off the bench, backing up Drew Holiday. I think he's an upgrade over George Hill. So I could see that as a potential landing spot for him. Miami, coming off the bench behind Kyle Lowry. That's another situation where I think he would give them great punch coming off the bench, because when they go to their second unit, you put him with Tyler Hero, and they out in the open court with him and Tyler Hero, and those guys getting up and down. I think that could be a good situation for him. So I think there's a few teams that he could find a role on, but I just think he's just got to right now just get on the court and just play and show that he's still has that caliber of talent. He's still that caliber of talent that everyone has seen in the past before he got hurt.
Absolutely. Hey, quick update. So Washington is really putting it on Seattle right now, 17-9. A little under 3 minutes left in the game. Unless they pull out some kind of miracle upset, it looks like Seattle's going to go to 3-8. So we should probably say a prayer for Seattle right now.
Go ahead.
I feel like we should go to confessional for Seattle. Hey, anybody got any final thoughts before we send off?
I will say, because I didn't get to comment on the James Harden thing very much.
Oh, my bad. Go ahead. I thought.
No, you're good. You're good. I didn't even think about it when it came to my turn the first time. So I'll be honest. I think part of it, the reason why he's not in the MVP conversation, he doesn't have to do as much now. Because you think about it, even when Westbrook went to Houston, who had to be the guy? James
Harden was definitely the guy.
So it's like now he can take a back seat. Yeah, KD, go do your thing. I don't have to worry about nothing. I can take a little bit more of a backseat role. I don't have to be the guy that I was back in Houston. Now, obviously, we saw in the playoffs. Does that help? Oh my God, you can't stop the Knicks offensively when that's not the Knicks, the Nets offensively when he does that. But to me, I think a lot of it's just he can play enough to where he can stay healthy. He can stay in contention throughout the season. He's not having to overextend himself and hurt himself trying to play extremely hard to keep his team competitive and to compete, because he has that legit. He's now the number 2. He kind of accepts he's the number 2, and he's okay with it because he's got KD, and they're in a good position as far as they're atop of the East. When you have KD, you're almost always going to be in contention. So he doesn't have to play to that level, and I think he's going to end up actually helping him in the long run when the Nets do go to the playoffs, because he's going to be a little bit more fresh as compared to when we saw him have to basically take on the entire Golden State Warriors by himself, and the man is just gassed by like game 4.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
All right, folks. This has been another edition of Real Talk with Tony, Ray, and my boy Kenny. And if you like our stuff, and please like, share, and comment everywhere you can. And we'll see you guys next Monday. And again, our hearts and condolences go out to all of Seattle Nation for this terrible, terrible performance that you guys have put on for us this Monday night.
All right, y'all.
All sports, all plays. Yeah. All sports, all plays. All sports, all plays. 365, we making a plays. You talking the game, get you through the days. We're high in the court, the dime in the lane. Variety topics, living the same. All presentation, sports information. In the airways, taking the nation. All sport, all plays, like working your face.